that you have been called into a new life, a different life, to walk away from the life of this world and to live differently, think differently. That is what it means to make disciples, to proclaim the gospel and to call people into this new life of following Jesus. And listen, what we're saying is that I don't think that the church can do what it's called to do, make disciples, without all three legs, all three components. Think about that for a second, right? If we said, okay, what's leg number one? That's teaching, right? Knowing God through knowing his word. Let's say, well, can the church make disciples without that leg? Well, what are we making disciples of if we're not committed to the word of God? If we say, well, hey, the word of God to us, it's kind of like a guide. There's some great suggestions and wisdom and stories to follow, some moral examples that kind of, point us in the right direction. But at the end of the day, we're not going to submit to the word of God. You are free to submit to whatever you think would be best for you. And the reality is we've been called into a new life as a disciple, and that's a new life of Jesus being Lord. He's Lord. His word is what we submit to. And so the church can't make disciples of anything if we're not committed to the word of God. Because what are we making disciples of? Or if we think about the second leg, all right, healing. This reality that Jesus wants to transform us. He wants to heal us. He wants to change us and grow us and mature us. All of the baggage that we have from living in a broken world, he wants to bring healing and transformation to that. And so let's say as a church, we go, well, doing that work of digging in, of confession, of seeing where Jesus wants to change and transform us, that's a little too intimate. That's a little too close. And so we're not gonna be a church that does that. We're gonna be a church where essentially attend on Sunday, enjoy, live your life how you want for the rest of the week. We can't make disciples if that's who we are. That just means that our faith is extracurricular, right? It's an event we attend, not a transformative force in our life actually changing us. And so again, right? The church isn't gonna make disciples of Jesus if we're not committed to where Jesus wants to transform us. And then obviously the third leg, right? Doing life together. This might be the leg that in our culture here in America, and Evan preached on this last week, where it's so tempting for us to say, this leg's optional, right? I can practice my faith and follow Jesus just fine by coming to church and reading my Bible in the mornings and kind of doing my thing and not doing it with other people involved in my life. That's the lie of our culture, right? We're a hyper-individualistic culture, but the reality is we take this leg away. We take away the primary way God changes and grows and sanctifies you. He does it primarily through other people speaking his word to you, other people encouraging you and admonishing you, other people staying committed to you even when life gets hard. If we say, my faith is just gonna be an individual thing, we're not making any disciples because we've just removed the primary way God grows us, through other people. And so we believe that in order to make disciples, we've gotta have all three components of the leg. And the reality is this: if we can't make disciples inside the church through having all three components, then we also don't believe we'll be able to make disciples outside the church, AKA actually going to our neighbors and proclaiming the gospel and inviting them in to partake.